Alright, welcome back to Tactical Enlightenment, our YouTube channel for discussing Bannerlord tactics. Normally it's advanced tactics. We're going to take a little step back here at the request of some subscribers. I do realize I'm doing a bit of a disservice to subscribers when I tell people they should start with 3, 4 or 5 army groups to learn the game, and then here I am running around with 8 and moving them around fluidly, right? So we've got this is a bit of a staged battle. I've basically been waiting for this force to attack me. Well, that unit didn't get in, but most of the units got in. It's still, it's roughly an even battle. We'll probably still win because, again, I have very veteran troops and also this large family full of high-level companions. Right? You're not going to have that advantage early on. That's one of the nice rewards of playing the game for a while, is you build up this core of really powerful family members, companions, etc. Alright, so into the battle we go. We're going to do... we'll do realistic damage. I'm not going to actually do a lot of fighting here. I'm mostly just going to be discussing how to use your 4 army groups. It'll probably technically be 5. Yes. Yeah, we have a horse archer group here. I love that the music... I've fought like 100 battles and it doesn't cut out until we have this intermediate tactic video. I apologize for that. Who knows why that's happening. Alright, so you've got your horse archers here. That's going to make it a little bit more complicated, but not as bad as you think, as you'll see soon. So we're going to take we're going to start with our archers. We have this little hill here. We're going to use this elevation. Your archers are shooting downhill, which means they can shoot further. It's surprising how much that actually affects their range. Right, so we want to put them there. Now, you don't want them all bottled up, right? You don't want them, obviously, a shield wall would be the absolutely worst thing for them to be in. They need to be in what's called spread formation, right? So to do that, you hit F2 and then F3, and I guess it's called loose, officially, loose formation. And that puts, a body length between each archer. The reason that's beneficial, of course, is if they're being shot with arrows from the other side, a lot of the arrows are landing between them, right? If your archers are tightly packed like that, then every arrow is finding a mark, right? You can't even fire an arrow or a javelin through there without hitting somebody. So we want them spread, right? You should always have your archers spread. There are very rare circumstances where you don't want that. For our purposes today, you want them spread. Your captains, you're assigning a hero to each group, right? And that captain, I've talked about this, I'm going to kind of blow through this. That captain should have bonuses that benefit that group, right? This is infantry, and so we want really strong bonuses that affect that infantry. Now these bonuses affect all of the infantry that are in his group. Well, what's his group, right? So he's in the 1st infantry. All of these guys, these 51 troops, all get these bonuses because of this warrior's skill. Now we want to move them into a shield wall formation, right? Shield walls block arrows, but you don't want to cut off the line of sight of your archers here, right? So you typically want to have them, 8, 10, 12, 15 feet, so to speak, downhill, right? Now they're in shield wall. The other thing I try to do is I try to sort of cover this whole line of archers so that their infantry that's going to be coming up this hill has to get through our infantry to get to our archers, right? Now our archers are kind of spread wide here. You can actually shrink this into a more fat, sort of fat typical block, something like that, right? Some guys prefer a really thick block like that. Sometimes it's a little quirky getting the layout to be just like you want. You got to play with it sometimes. Alright, so we've got our 1st infantry there. I don't have a normal setup here, but our 3rd infantry is our skirmishers. Skirmishers typically have javelins, throwing axes, stuff like that. They're projectile-based warriors. And we're going to leave them in line formation. Right? There's a little bit of distance between them. They don't really have that many shields. This is not a traditional javelin corps, but that's how we're gonna organize them. So we've got 2 different infantry groups. We've got our archers. Now you can see, unless infantry come to the side here, they have to kind of go through our infantry to get to the archers, right? That's what we want. And those archers have a nice clean line of sight shooting down at the enemy, right? So the cavalry is going to be easy. We're actually just going to drag the cavalry. I hadn't really thought about the horse archers, but we'll drag them around as well. And you do that simply by hitting F1 and F2, and that's the follow command, right? So before the battle actually collides, these troops from the enemy actually collide, the basic strategy we're going to employ here is to use our range from these archers, right? We probably have, if not more archers than them, about the same amount. We're going to use this extra range, and we're going to interrupt their infantry that's charging at us with this cavalry, right? We're going to drive it like in a big train, you know, a big runaway train right through their infantry, kind of knocking them around. And then we'll also try to use our cavalry to sort of collide with their cavalry. Again, if their cavalry is in here just waylaying your archers, you know, you're obviously not gonna be shooting as many arrows as you want, right? That's the paramount strategy behind everything we're doing right here, is to focus on these elevated archers. There's 218 guys here, right, with a quiver full of death, and we're going to try to protect them. If we protect these guys most of the fight, not every single one of them, but if we protect most of these guys and keep them from you know, having to fight, in other words, if they're just shooting instead, this battle should be a battle we can win, even though we're outnumbered. Right, so we're going to get going. So I'm going to have the cavalry follow, right? I select them, F1, brings up the menu, F2. And I understand this is bewildering. I can remember my first week playing the game, and I got into my very first battle, and there's guys throwing rocks at me, and I was like, what the fuck? And then I was looking down, and I was like, all right, I'm supposed to hit F1 and F2, and the next thing I know, you know, guys were holding up shields that were archers, and it was a complete debacle. And some guy threw a rock in my face and I died, right? Like, it is a very intimidating game when you start. Obviously, the more you play, the more fluid you'll get. So you can see what's going on here. I've got this big train of cavalry running behind me, right? I encourage you to use the Alt button for your PC players. You can actually hear the arrows flying already, so the archers are readily shooting. I'm not going to encourage you to hold fire here. That's just one more thing that you're probably going to forget if you try to have them hold fire and open up and the enemy's close. Alright, so all we're doing here is we're just meeting the enemy with combat, right? We don't want this big block of their cavalry charging into our archers, right? So all we've done is drive our cavalry right into theirs. Now, up on the hill, you can actually see they had 2 cavalry waves, and so some of them did get through, right? But one wave getting through is a lot better than both of them. Now their infantry is right on us, and you really don't want that normally. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to pull through there, because the infantry do a decent job of putting the smackdown on cavalry that are standing still. But what we do want to do is we do want to run through here and just interrupt these guys. All we're trying to do is slow their march, right? We're hitting them, we're knocking them down. You see guys are getting knocked on their ass. All we're doing is slowing them down, right? Because we want those archers to keep shooting. At this stage now, they've ran into our infantry, so we're going to do 3 different groups attacking at once. The infantry, the first infantry attacks, the third infantry attacks, right? And attack is F1 and then F3, and then the cavalry attacks. So the second cavalry, they attack F1 and F3, right? And then of course we can come through here. I guess I shouldn't kill too many. This battle would be really lopsided. Now, the enemy at some point or other, with so many infantry, they outnumbered us there, is probably going to break through. You can see them, some of their infantry is getting to the back here where your archers are. But many of your archers are still shooting, right? And they're unmolested. Your archers are still taking shots. The nice thing is there's no friendly fire for AI, right? You can hit your own troops. Like, I can accidentally just totally maul my own people. But the computer can't shoot you, and you can't, the computer can't shoot each other either. So all these arrows that your group is firing here, you're not hurting yourself at least, right? And that wave is pretty much dissolved, right? And again, part of the reason is that they're attacked by 3 different groups at once. Now we have those archers there, right? These fucking archers are just lighting us up. So we're going to grab our cavalry, and we're going to drag them, and we're going to drive them right through like a runaway train, right? And these scum archer are just going to get stampeded by 1,500 pounds of horses over and over again, right? Just being hit by a horse, you know, for an archer is a bad deal, right? They're interrupted. Sometimes they're knocked on their ass, right? It's actually kind of satisfying just to run guys over. Now your infantry, if you weren't paying attention, you told them to charge, right? So you can actually see them charging right here. These guys are still charging. Units will do what you told them last to do until you tell them to do something else. That's how it works. So these guys are just charging gleefully, following their orders, right? These are highly obedient troops. Right. Now we don't really want them to do that though. Right. So the problem is that, see, the enemy reinforcements are way out there, way across the battlefield. Well, if your infantry keep charging, they will charge all the way out here until it's 30 infantry against 500 of the enemy, and it's good night Irene, right? Your infantry will be hugely outnumbered and torn to ribbons. So I'm actually going to bring them back. There's a couple different ways you can do that. You can select the actual infantry, their number, and say, follow me, just like the cavalry, right? The cavalry are obediently following, and your infantry will follow as well. The other thing you can do is you can just, once you bring up their unit number, the green flags come out where they're going to stand, and you can just tell them to get back in their original lines, right? So the next wave is coming, right? You can see the number ticking down. You can kind of see them through the forest there. And we're going to change it up just a little bit. We're going to add a little bit more complexity. We're going to take one of our cavalry units off to the side, right? We're actually going to send, here, I'll send both, just for dramatic effect. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to have them effectively charge the flank, or even the rear of the enemy, right? Our infantry is in shield wall. And now I'm going to tell the cavalry to charge. So that's 2, F1, F3, right? And you can see here they come, right? These guys are going to charge. The enemy infantry is looking the other way, and suddenly they get cavalry charging right into their backs. The horse archers, you can tell them charge too, and then just to cinch it off, we'll have our infantry divisions, both of them, charge, right? So F1, F3 for both those two divisions. Now, if you really want to seal the deal here, send your archers too. Here, there's archers that are standing around, and the reason they're standing there and not shooting is they're out of arrows. So you use their number and tell them to charge too. Anybody who's out of ammo will then join the fray, right? These guys are charging downhill. Your archers that still have arrows back there, they're still shooting, right? The guys who have an extra quiver, or maybe they didn't have a great line of sight, they will advance and keep shooting. But now all your units are charging, basically. Your infantry, your archers are advancing, lighting people up with arrows. Your cavalry's out there rampaging. And again, if this was a really long battle, you'd want to be careful with this. Because these units would start to get really spread out. Your cavalry would be way extended. In combat games like this, the word for it is overextended, where the mass of your troops is back there. And then you've got cavalry way out here. You can imagine what would happen to these 30 cavalry if the enemy suddenly decided, we're going to fight. Those cavalry would be in deep trouble. I think at this stage, though, the battle is pretty much over. Right? We totally collapsed both of their attacks. I'm just going to kind of observe and see what happens here. Our cavalry are doing something that's called cycle charging. They will charge through, knock guys down. They usually go side to side or front to back. And all they're doing is knocking guys to the ground like that, or hitting them with their sword, right? Form a shield wall! And they just basically keep on circling back and forth. You can see them going back and forth over the battlefield. Now, it works really well for dispersed troops, right? For troops that are really widely spread out, it does a really nice job. But troops that are tightly packed, if your cavalry are coming in and cycle charging like that, they're likely to get stood up by spears, shot to pieces by arrows, or just taken out by sheer mass, right? The enemy will have, a lot more numbers on them. You can see him still charging. Sometimes you got to appreciate the joy of the game. These cavalry just clowning these poor peasants. These guys, yesterday they were reaping the wheat, and today they're being trampled by 1,200-pound cavalry. You got to feel for them a little bit, even though they're just pixels. Of course, you feel for them because this is, this a real thing in real life. These guys actually would get trampled by a horse. So at this stage you can kind of observe the enemy's behavior as well. They have been more or less reforming / retreating ever since that second wave was annihilated. Right? These are all farmers. They'd rather go back to their wife and their hovel than get trampled by a 15-pound horse. Right? So they're kind of pretending they're fighting here. That's why the battle is still going. Right? This guy's like, I'm tough. You know, I got my pitchfork. And then, you know, bad things happen. You should have kept on running, buddy. So hopefully this is beneficial for some intermediate level players. Maybe even some players that just got past the beginning stage and are now starting to command their own armies. I know some players will find this very basic, but the reality is the game is very complicated, and I do understand that I might have done a disservice by throwing people right into the fray and saying, hey, you know, this game you should be controlling 4 or 5 units, and then here I am running around pretty fluently commanding 8. And these guys actually still want to fight. This is pretty interesting. They haven't had enough, I guess. They got some spirit. Now, part of the reason they're probably willing to fight is it's like 20 on 300, right? They might only be peasants, but if there's 300 of them, they hit you with that sickle. I mean, they're going to do some damage with that thing, right? Reap the wheat, and it'll reap your head off your body too. Right? All right, so they're finally getting up. They've had enough. Thank you for watching. We'll run a couple more of these. Hopefully that helps bridge the gap for some intermediate level players where they can start using some more of the advanced tactics we plan to show on our channel. Thanks for watching, folks, and remember to subscribe. Have a good one.